Have you ever seen a movie so bad it became legendary?
Some films fail and are forgotten, but this one was so disastrously awful that it gained a cult following and even inspired another film on the making of this film that critics actually loved.
How did a cinematic train wreck transform into an unexpected success?
Stick around as we unravel the unbelievable story of how failure turned into fame for the 2003 film, The Room.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber. We're glad to announce that the executive producer of this video is Red Cloud, who requested this film through Axiom Amnesia's Deep Dive on Demand program that we'll tell you more about later.
Of course, there will be spoilers.
Yes. So let's start with the background of this crazy, crazy film. How did it even come about? Because we didn't find this out in the movie. We actually watched the other movie that was on the making of this movie, The Room.
And it's called The Disaster Artist. So there's two guys, Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero, and they knew each other because they were acting in acting class. This is according to The Disaster Artist. I think Greg Sestero wrote a book about this film, The Room, and its relationship with Tommy. They came together in San Francisco and they ended up moving to LA to pursue acting full time. And then they ended up creating the movie The Room because they were having troubles getting cast and everything. And Tommy Wiseau just happened to have money and everything so that they can get this film made.
Yes. Kind of the thing that winds up happening in this film, or in the second film that was made about The Room, is that it gives a little bit of the background of how they came together, them coming to LA, them making this film. You were telling me about the ending. So it ends with, the actual showing of this film,
yes,
which was unsurprisingly a box office flop.
Right. So they went to a premiere is how The Disaster Artist ends. And I think it may be fictional somewhat, right? But it's based on some other things that may have happened. But they're at the premiere. No one really liked the movie, right? It was just so bad. And it was so bad that it became a comedy and everyone was laughing at the movie at the end of, Disaster, the premiere of The Room. Everyone was just laughing. Tommy was so upset that he left the theater and, Greg had to bring him back in and show him like, look, basically you made people happy and stuff with this bad film that you made.
Like, that's just never what you're going for, right?
But what about how we were introduced to the film?
Okay, so we were introduced when Red Cloud, sent us the name of this film, and I was like, oh, okay, there are a number of films called The Room. And so I'm like, which one is it? And so he responds back, it's the Tommy Wiseau one, right? And so I was like, okay, so this was not a film that either of us had ever even seen. I hadn't even heard of it. Yeah. We were like, all right, so we start watching this movie and it's like, what? Wait, is this I started thinking like, are we being, pranked?
Yeah,
what
this
in
a
the
troll?
world?
What is going on? And it was like, what in the world? These people can't act. And the dialogue is crazy. One of my first comments was like, okay, this is kind of like Tyler Perry, King Obvious, right? Stating the obvious. And this was like very early on. And I was like, do we have to sit through this whole movie?
And it just was just so bad that it became entertaining to watch how bad it was, right? And some of the things that people have said about this movie is that it was labeled the Citizen Kane of bad movies. And if you guys know anything about movies at all, anytime you say the best movies of all time, Citizen Kane is on this list, right? And not to get too deep into it, but the bottom line is Citizen Kane is on there because of technological advances and certain ways that the film was presented that was revolutionary at the time. But, as a person who's watched a lot of films that are more modern, if you go back and you watch Citizen Kane, it can be a little difficult to appreciate those things unless you understand it in the context of what the films prior to that were, right? But the point is, if it's the Citizen Kane of bad movies, that's like saying it's going to always be at the top of the list, just like Citizen Kane for the best movies of all time. This movie, The Room 2003, will be at the at the top of the list of the worst movies of all time.
Yeah, but it makes me think of Dolomite, because Dolomite became a cult classic, right? But it was supposed to be funny, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was intentional comedy, but it was shot with a low budget. The difference here is that The Room had a way bigger budget than Dolomite, right? And that Dolomite sparked a film, My Name is Dolomite, about the making of Dolomite and maybe some of those other films. But I think of this one as, a 2000s Dolomite for white people without the humor.
It just was like, oh,
because,
man.
Dolomite is a black film that was popular with black people in the 70s.
Right.
Yeah. And I just think like this just didn't touch my radar at all.
And $6 million spent on this, as the budget for this film. And it's like, okay, so the film has bad sound. It's using like unsynced ADR.
Yeah,
through
the ADR. The sound isn't bad. It's the ADR.
So the lips and the sound of the voice is not matching.
The sound effects are just out there, right? But so that's one of the things that they showed in The Disaster Artist, the film about the making of this, is that when Wiseau went to, rent the equipment, they were like, okay, you can buy it, right? And he just had the money and he bought it. And then it was like, okay, we got us a whale. So how about you just pay us and you can film here? And then he did that. And then it was just basically like, let me introduce you to some people who you can hire to work on the film. So he got all these professional equipment and all of this, which makes it like kind of a high end, sort of a low budget film, you know what I'm saying, in terms of or a B film. Except when you get to the green screen, then it's very obvious what's going on. And then, the framing of the shots and all that stuff too, that shows like the actual filmmaker himself wasn't, that great or that experienced. Want us to cover your favorite movie ASAP? For a limited time, a $25 donation gets you a deep dive on demand, a 30-minute discussion on any film you choose, delivered within about 30 days.
It's easy. Step 1, send $25 via our website, axiom.app, or Cash App, $Axiom Amnesia, links below. Step 2, tell us your movie and email. And step 3, watch your deep dive on demand with your name listed as executive producer.
Lock in your deep dive on demand today and hurry. Spots are limited and a $25 minimum donation amount won't last.
This offer is not valid for filmmakers or distributors, subject to availability and terms apply. 20 minutes into the movie, I was like, wait a minute, are we for real here? Because, I'm thinking, I had in my mind when we thought about deep dive on demand that people would be sending us, like Shawshank Redemption level films or other stuff. So I've got my serious thinking cap on. I'm ready to take some notes. And I was like, wait a minute.
This is our first one. And it was like, oh man, should we be regretting this idea?
Yes. But then I realized, after we saw it, I was like, okay, wait, I get it. And then, while we were watching, Heit looks up, starts researching the film because he was like, wait a minute, hold on. He was like, oh, this has become a cult classic. Like, this is a thing.
And people troll so much. It was like very separate ideas. So some of them like, this is the worst film, and some are like, this is the best. So I still didn't actually know. Right. So it's
what
like,
it would be.
Yeah.
But it's
people were trolling.
Because it's the worst, it sort of the experience became the best for the people who just are looking for all of the mistakes, all of the problems, who just can't believe it. And another thing is that the film actually has these gratuitous.
For the first 30 minutes, that just seems like what it is. These gratuitous explicit scenes.
Yes. And like, let me tell you, I even wrote down the timestamps, right? So at 6 minute mark, there's one. Then at 14 minutes, there's one. At 25 minutes, there's one. And then you get to wait a whole almost about the 30, 40 minutes. And then there's another one. And then there's, some more gratuitous.
How long does it last?
Stuff. Way longer than I would expect. It may only be like 3 minutes, but
yeah, two of those scenes we thought were the exact same scene that they just
I
recut.
think they used some clips again.
Footage.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
but they made fun of it in The Disaster Artist. They was like, make sure you show my butt, because Tommy Wiseau, he wrote it and directed it.
Yes, and starred in it. Yes. And so why don't we just get to explaining what the film was actually about. I'll just give a quick, brief summary of that so that we have some context as to why they would, have all of these gratuitous, explicit things and scenes in the film. So basically, Johnny, the main character, is a successful banker in San Francisco. He's played by Tommy Wiseau. He lives with his fiancée, Lisa, who secretly begins an affair with his best friend, Mark. Suspicious of her infidelity, Johnny records their phone conversations while also supporting his younger neighbor, Denny, who confesses feelings for Lisa also. As Lisa falsely accuses Johnny of laying hands on her, and her affair becomes even more blatant, tensions rise, culminating in a confrontation at Johnny's birthday party. Devastated by Lisa's betrayal and Mark's disloyalty, Johnny suffers a breakdown, destroys his apartment, and ultimately takes himself out, leaving Lisa and Mark's relationship in ruins as Denny mourns his mentor.
Man.
That is literally how it ends. And when I tell you, any other description, anytime you're reading this description, you would not be laughing at the tragic things that happen. But
if you hadn't seen the film.
Oh my gosh.
So by the end of The Disaster Artist, everybody was like enjoying, begging him to do it at the end. It was like, yeah, do it. Right?
Oh my goodness.
But I didn't get that feeling at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, I was kind of sad. Like, I get what the guy was trying to do, right? And yeah, I just get what he was trying to do. And it's very sad because anytime there's something like this happens, I'm just, I feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, and when you're looking at this as a whole, the idea of it may not have been a bad idea. How many, I guess, great Tubi movies or even mainstream movies have these betrayal themes and all of that? Like, the idea itself could have maybe worked, right? But the dialogue was so terrible.
Yeah.
The acting was so terrible that it just couldn't be pulled off. Like, it just couldn't be.
The plot, the story just wasn't all the way right either. Some ideas weren't explored, like the breast cancer, about Denny's terrible life in the streets.
Yeah. And then, like, why are you taking care of this grown, man? And
a grown man who's still in school. I think he was like in high school or something. It's just all weird.
It just, the whole thing. The whole thing is just like, throw the whole movie away is what you would be thinking. Because I remember while I was watching, I was like, what in the, why is this happening? But that's not going to stop us from analyzing the actual film and talking more about Tommy Wiseau and, like what his deal was. Yes. The sound was bad, like we pointed out before, where the lips and the words coming out are not matching on the screen.
Yeah. And you thought it was a problem with us.
Yeah, I was like,
is
it playing right? Like, what's happening? Because, sometimes on streaming, if it gets out of sync, sometimes it'll do that, right? But and then we just like paused and unpaused trying to get this, but no, it is actually, this is the way the movie is, right? Then the blocking of shots in this movie was like, all right, so when you're making a movie, you have to kind of film things in a way that the person who's watching understands the layout of the room that you're in.
Yeah, and it was very disorienting, right? At times I'm like, wait, where are we in the room? Which room are we even in?
Yeah.
Too, at times.
Yeah.
And those blockings. And sometimes, like, having the proper look space, right? You don't have a character at the right edge of the screen looking off the screen at whatever going on.
Right. There's got to be some space there on the screen. But these are all of the things that great films, and I won't even say great films, that films that meet the minimum standards for sound, for, their cinematography, that they just do. Right.
And the layperson don't even know. You just take it for granted that these things are being done
until you watch The Room
or until you try to make your own film.
That because sometimes mistakes are made, you can watch like what I would call amateur filmmakers. before there was Tubi, we used to watch a lot of movies that were on Amazon, right? Because like some of what I call cult classics, in our culture, like Buffed Up and these other films, although those films were shot pretty well, there are other films that are kind of in the same genre where literally somebody filmed them on their phone is what it looks like, you know? And even if they
don't do ADR or anything.
Yeah, the sound is bad. They're outside and you can hear the wind and leaves rustling louder than the dialogue.
Far away from the mic.
Yeah, yeah. So like you can tell it was very low budget, but some of them are really good. Like the stories are really good and everything is great about them except the production values, right? In this case, this was one of those things that hit all of the things that can make it, ticked all the boxes for things that can make a movie bad. So, the bad blocking of the shots and then just the melodrama, the way the acting was. So one of my favorite scenes, every time he gets frustrated with Lisa or his girlfriend or something, we see Johnny say, "Why, Lisa? Why?"
Why, Lisa? Why?
He literally says this, and it's like, "Are you serious? Are we really serious? Is this what?"
Right. But so also one thing about the production is like the lighting. Right. So the movie is called The Room, but the room just don't look that good. And the lighting in there and then the way it started. And one of my first things was, is this a TV movie?
Right. Because it kind of had that feel to it. But then I was like, why is it called The Room? Let's investigate that question. Why did you call it? Most of it takes place in this room. Well, most of it takes place in this one room. And then there's the bedroom, which is not this living room. But then at points, they're in the hallway or other spots so why did he choose to call it The Room? I have so many questions. So The Room.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that it reminds me of the idea of Here, right? So if you don't know about the film Here that I just keep bringing up because I found that it was great, is that it basically all takes place in the same room, but not only that, in the same spot. Yeah. Right. So even before the house existed, here is that space. And then I kind of wonder, after watching this, like, is this where you got the idea from this, cult classic film?
It's one perspective. It is literally one
here
perspective.
Is one perspective. The camera doesn't move or anything. Right. So you get that same view. But I think that's what he was going for. Right. All these things happen in this room. He had his birthday party and all this, and his wife or his fiance was doing all these things in this room. His friend Denny.
They were getting fitted for the tuxes in the room.
Yeah.
Like everything happened in this. And then that part didn't even make sense. Like who gets fitted for their tux for their wedding in their living room? It just was all very bizarre, but the way that the dramatic acting went in this film, I said in one of my notes, like, all that's missing is that Meatloaf song, I Would Do Anything for Love, because
Why, Lisa? Please talk to me, please.
Everything about this film reminds me of like an 80s power ballad. From the way the main character looks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Does he look like Meatloaf to you?
No, he looks very much like these Fabio characters, with that were the 80s love ballad.
Didn't Meatloaf look like that in?
I guess Meatloaf did kind of look like that in the video.
Yeah, I think in that video
maybe
for that song.
It just reminds you though. That's what I just kept thinking, like the only thing. But let's talk about the music.
Oh, so that's one thing, right? I was talking about, you have basically the white Dolomite, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very white film. All the actors and stuff are white, but the music is black.
Yeah, it's like R&B sort of.
With a black woman singer in there.
And they were not bad. Okay, so you think about this, came out in 2003. So like if it came out around then, I mean, it feels very dated now in 2025, listening to the music, accompanying, typically like it was in the love scenes, right? But I like the music. Yeah, the music wasn't bad.
The music was good and it sounded like more 90s R&B. So even for 2003, I wish I'd had seen it then. I think the music would have been kind of dated.
Yeah. A little dated, but still good.
I like the music though.
The music was, I mean, that was one. It did
people
not
talk
fail.
about the music. I like the music.
Well, and maybe the music. It was a mismatch between the audience, right?
And it's a
the
mismatch
music.
between the film too and the music, right? Because of what's going on, how it's shot and everything. And then the music comes on. It felt like at the beginning, I was like, is this one of those Skinamax movies?
Yeah, like
because I
Red
didn't
Shoe
know.
Diary type after hours, like when you're a kid
The
and you're not supposed to be
saxophone or
watching
whatever
it,
comes
right? The
in,
80s
like,
sax, yes. I guess the thing for me is with the music, this was something, and you never notice how you'll have something where you're like, wow, but wait, that was actually kind of good. You weren't expecting it, comes out of nowhere, but the music, did he put out a soundtrack for this movie? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but there's this one singer, the woman, what's her name? Latai something Williams. I was able to Shazam those songs, but I couldn't find them on Spotify.
I think the music it gets a thumbs up, actually.
Yeah.
Especially if the music was made specifically for this film only and you didn't just kind of pull a song from here or there. But I agree with you, though. There was a mismatch between what was happening because, like you said, it was kind of like 90s R&B, but it was love songs. It was falling in love songs, not struggle love songs, not like things are going bad, things are going downhill, which is what's happening in the film. It's like I'm in the throes of the most wonderful love,
right.
and it just,
it wasn't adding
It's
about
up.
some infidelity, right? So when the fiance is doing it with these other cats, when Lisa is with his best friend, right? The song shouldn't just be no super love song.
But it is. But and that was the other thing about the dialogue, right? Lisa keeps telling the friend Mark, the best friend Mark, I love you. I love you. That's all she says over and over again. It was just like at some point it was empty. It just was the most weird thing.
And she just always saying, I don't love Johnny anymore. Over and over.
I don't love Johnny anymore. I don't even like him.
I don't want to be with Johnny because I don't love Johnny. And, but we're going to get into a little bit more about the character, Johnny, in a moment. But yeah, so that's the problem. There was this mismatch. And so in terms of the soundtrack, there was actually a soundtrack that was put out. The Room, the original motion picture soundtrack, and it had 29 songs on it.
Dang,
when was the last time you had an
CD.
album with 29 songs? So he had how did he? Because in 2003
you had probably 80 minutes, 72, I can't even remember, 74 minutes on a CD.
So yeah, he put that out there. So he tried to do. He had all the boxes like up, soundtrack done.
He had the money.
He had 6 mil. Like, listen, it just could have been better. But see, the whole thing that we haven't actually touched on is the reason that Tommy made this movie is because he was not really a good actor. Okay, he couldn't get a job acting the roles he wanted to act, and they wouldn't make the movie that he wanted to make. So he said, I got to make it myself. And we see that happen.
Yeah,
but usually
all the time.
when we see it happen, like the product is amazing, right? It comes, or at least it's good.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, at least it's good. Because, speaking of which, you had us watching I'm About It, Master P's movie.
Yeah. This was like when he was going straight to VHS. This was before people were really able to make their own movies. Master P
had the money,
and he got films made. Like the first one, he didn't have that much money, but he had somebody who was an industry insider to help him with that. But after that, he had the money to hire whoever to make the movies.
Yeah.
This was a little different. He had the money, but he didn't have all the pieces. And I think he was one who was very controlling over the production, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't even allow the experts to take over. Like they had a script expert, right?
Yeah.
Who would make calls, but you just get overwritten.
And that to me is the problem a lot of times, because people will have stuff in their mind when they're trying to make something happen. But I remember this was like in the late 90s when I was, I said, oh, I'm going to go buy a book because, that's what you did back then. I'm going to go buy a book. And it was actually a series about writing dialogue, right? The whole series was just about writing dialogue in screenplays and in novels and stuff like that. And one of the things you got to understand about the dialogue is that it only serves one purpose when you're having characters talk to one another. It's to advance the plot. So when you bring characters in a room, you don't go, hey, how are you today? What do you do? You know, it doesn't play out the same way as real life because you've only got, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 3, you know, to make this happen.
Right. And your dialogue is just supposed to advance the plot. That's it.
Yeah.
So no niceties, pleasantries, none of that stuff. Just get right to it. But there was too much of that too, right? I'm not in love with Johnny anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Keep saying it. And that's the problem, right? Because if you have skilled actors, really good actors can convey certain ideas without even saying a word. They did not have this level of skill in acting on this film, you know? So you're not going to get like the little subtle movements or things like that kind of clue you into what's going on because everything is very obvious. It's very in your face. And it's just over the top, which almost makes it seem like a parody. Tommy Wiseau did come out later and he called this a black comedy. But of course, it was after everybody's response to it, because I think he thought like, I'm about to get me an Oscar. You know, he thought this was amazing.
At the end of The Disaster Artist, they talked about how it played in one theater and he made like $1,800. But then he paid for it to stay in the theater for the 2 weeks that was required to be considered for the Academy Awards.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Bruh. You should have known, like, you just anytime. This a waste.
He was going to win Best Actor because my favorite line and everyone's favorite line, you're tearing me apart, Lisa.
You're tearing me apart.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa.
Why are you so hysterical?
But he got that line, at least according to the movie about the movie. It came from this line from Rebel Without a Cause. You know, the old film.
And they really like James Dean is how they portrayed it. So I didn't read the book. I just watched the movie, The Disaster Artist. Yeah. And they were really like James Dean.
Yes. So again, let's just get back to what all was happening in the film itself. But one of the things I want to talk about says, because we do character analysis, who was Johnny? Johnny was like the most perfect person in the world. He was the most forgiving. He was the most, you know,
took in an orphan boy, basically.
Yeah, an orphan man.
An orphan man, and paid for him an apartment in the same building.
Yes. And, you know, and it was like a father figure to him. And I was like, okay, because it was confusing as to how old this character was really supposed to be, which brings us to the real, you know, to actually Tommy, right? Wiseau. And there's so much that people don't even know about him. When he was asked where he was from, he said he was from New Orleans. Bro, you clearly have some type of Eastern European accent, right? Where did you get the money? Where did you get the $6 million?
No one knows where he got the money. No one knows where he's from. No one knows how old he is, when he was born, where he was born.
Yeah. This is all a mystery. So that's the other part that kind of makes this whole movie making and story, you know, interesting. But the character Johnny, like, and examples of where Johnny was just the most perfect guy. Like, his dialogue literally said at points, he was like, I'm so lucky to have you. He's talking to his best friend, Mark. I'm so lucky to have you. I'm so lucky to have Lisa. Like, who in their real life even says anything remotely like that? You know, just as a casual conversation. And he was perfect because every day he would get her a gift, or he would buy roses and come home with it and stuff like that. Yeah,
some people think this is autobiographical.
Yeah, but let me tell you what also is weird was with their, you know, gratuitous explicit scenes. I think he thought he was really putting it down.
Bruh.
And you know how, all right, so in movies, it's supposed to look like you would want this, right? Like you would want to be in this, or it's supposed to, you know, be like a hot scene. I was like, this is the most unhot scene. Like, I don't want to see this. Why are you showing me this? And then on top of it, you know, he's trying to show his backside.
Bruh.
No, we did not need to see all of that. Now, what's also weird, and this is why you couldn't really tell with his age was, because his body is very like muscular, like he works out in the gym and, you know, whatever, like 6'8" pack or whatever, but his face looks older. So it's like, is he in his 30s? Is he in his 40s?
But his body looked like it was wrinkled too. So you know what I'm saying?
It was hard. It was hard to kind of figure out.
Yeah, it's like
his age. How
old is this guy?
Well, and that's the thing, because even the guy who plays the young guy who he's like the father figure to,
Denny,
I was like, is he supposed to be, Denny, is he supposed to be older, younger? Like, is he in college? Is he a child? Is he got this older guy playing a kid? Is he supposed to be a teenager? It's unclear. And this is like what I would call bad casting choices, including yourself as the star. And I mean, I say it not to, you know, just totally, I mean, got to be honest. It was a terrible movie. But as we continue on down the line and we analyze Johnny, this character, he was very much like unbelievable and unrealistic.
You're going to destroy Johnny. He's very sensitive.
I don't care.
You know.
But it was like a very pathetic character, right? Because it's kind of how we usually get with the women. They kind of know what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. So he kind of has this idea that his best friend is messing with his fiance, right? But then it just happens to be standing on the stairs that move around in the room. But he's on the stairs and then he hears this conversation, I think, between them. Yeah.
I had sex with someone else.
You can't be serious.
You don't understand.
Right? So then he knows, he hears, his fiance talking about, how she's with his best friend, right? So then that's where he gets the idea to go ahead and record, right?
I show them. I record everything.
For whatever reason, but he doesn't address it or anything.
Yeah, but he's upset, And
he still continue on with the same thing. Like, he's bringing gifts home every day and, that's just his character, but he's pathetic, sympathetic.
Yes. And the other part is that I think if it taken at face value, I think the intent was to portray him like he's the perfect guy. But in reality, there's something like he was crazy or something, because who behaves in this way?
Right.
You betrayed me. How could you love it?
Nobody acts like this where every day you're bringing all of these gifts and whatever. You got this completely unappreciative fiance and she's like flittering around with everybody who's in the sphere. It just is all weird.
Yeah. So Lisa said, she just out of nowhere said, and Johnny hit me, right? Out of nowhere. He's a perfect guy, and for some reason she thinks she can do better, right? But then after she starts saying this, then Johnny actually does put hands on her, right? He pushes her.
Yeah.
Do you understand life? Do you?
Yeah.
Twice in one conversation. So then it's like, come on, what? He might not be that perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened before all of this. Maybe he was. That's why he bringing home gifts. Sometimes flowers and candy mean, he's on his gift trip about the night before. Yep. Go to the comments with, the source of that reference.
Tell us about it. And so what happened on that night before, though, where so Lisa decides, hey, I'm going to get him drunk and then he's not going to remember. And then I'm going to lie to him, right? Because he doesn't drink. So she comes out with this drink and then he's like, no, I don't want to drink any of that. And then she's like, oh, come on. So she convinces him to drink. He drinks and whatever. And then, this is where another one of those, gratuitous, explicit scenes happens. And then the next morning is when she comes up with talking about what he did to her or whatever, that, he laid hands on her. And it's just like, wait, what? And he, in his mind, is like, he knows that he didn't do this. He's like, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that, right?
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
And it reminded me of this film that we watched called Gaslight, right? Which is claimed to be the source of people saying, oh, you stop gaslighting me. You know how that's just, especially nowadays, every other, accusation is that somebody's gaslighting somebody else. Well, there's this movie that we took the time to watch called Gaslight. And it's basically, long story short, about this woman whose love interest is gaslighting her, okay, telling her stuff, that's not true, and kind of making her question her own sanity about it. And so, like in the film, he was like, "Oh, well, you're always forgetting things, dear. You're always, forgetful or whatever." And then shortly thereafter, you see her buying into the gaslighting, right? And she's like, "Well,
Right.
I'm so forgetful. You wasn't forgetful before this,
Right.
but."
And the gaslighting is the reference to the lighting in the house, right?
Yes.
So he would like change the lighting, slowly turning it down and stuff, and she don't know that this is going on.
So
Right?
she's like, "It's dim in here. Isn't it dim in here?" She's talking to the workers in the house and everything. Or did someone change the lighting? Did someone, and he's making her think she's nuts,
Yeah.
and she's questioning her own sanity because of this reason. And this film reminds me of that because in a way, that's kind of what we saw Lisa try to do to Johnny in this movie.
Yeah.
And so when so she gets him like that way. Then the next morning she makes this accusation. And I think that's why she had him drink, right? So that
Oh yeah.
it couldn't be contested the
Especially
same
somebody
way.
who don't drink, right?
Yeah.
But he, after that though, he was going out of the scene on the roof is just a funny one where he's talking to himself like, "I didn't hit her. Oh, hey Denny," or whatever.
I have a problem with Lisa. She says that I hit her.
Where he's just really feeling bad that she's accused him of this.
Yeah.
Well, did you? No, it's not true. Don't even ask.
He's like, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I love Lisa so much." Like he's just, and the acting is over the top. And then Lisa is just running around wreaking havoc and, and she just doesn't even care.
And she's just telling everybody too.
Who will listen?
Everybody she talked to, she is like, "I'm no longer in love with Johnny.
I'm no longer in love with Johnny. He's boring." Just like the most, just, I don't know, unnatural type of dialogue in this film. I say the acting is so terrible with the laughing emoji so many times in my notes. It's just unbelievable.
So you have also the character Mark, who is his best friend, right? And one day, Lisa just comes on to him and he's like, "No, Johnny's my friend,"
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up doing it, right? And, Johnny, well, Mark is just like, "Man, I can't believe I done that," and basically like, "I ain't gonna do it again." He does it again. That's where we getting all these scenes, right? Those rated scenes. And then he even goes see his friend who is a psychiatrist or a counselor, therapist, something, right? Who's like, "You can't see her again and you definitely can't do anything with her." And then he goes,
But the first thing Mark does is go over and sees her.
Oh, come on, Johnny's my best friend.
Just one more time.
That boy Mark. And then by the end, at the party, then Mark has turned on Johnny now.
Right. Because Mark is supposedly now in love with Lisa, who's constantly talking about how much she loves him. And I'm like, okay, if y'all weren't involved even before this, how are you just in love with him?
Nothing in the film indicated that they have fallen in love all of a sudden. But so then that's the case. And then, he turns on Johnny. But that was his best friend in the film.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was his best friend. I only knew it because Lisa said it, right?
They stated outright, like everything else in the film. It's blatantly stated. But the other thing that we see a couple times in the movie is Lisa talking to her mother, right? And so this is also used I guess, a way to get Lisa's feelings out because, she's going to tell anybody that's listening, like we said, that she is no longer in love with Johnny. And then she tells her mother at one point, "I'm in love with Mark." But I'm like, how are you in love with Mark? Y'all never even, like that wasn't the vibe. That wasn't what was happening before. And then I guess this is where, we get gems dropped in the film, I suppose. But her mother's like, "You can't live on love. You need financial security."
Now, you can't live on love. You need financial security.
So
I
her
think
mother
I was
is
just trying to paint this mother as a certain way.
it a big fail, you know. And so Lisa says, hey, I want to be happy. And the mother says, marriage has nothing to do with love.
Men and women use and abuse each other all the time. There's nothing wrong with it.
So the mother is like encouraging her because, you know, Johnny has money and he takes care of her. She's like, you can't take care of yourself. You need to stick with this man. This is a good marriage match for you. And you'll be straight. And it ain't got nothing to do with love. And then the mother goes on to be like, I didn't love your father, you know. But in the end, she hits her with, don't throw your life away just because you don't love him. I was like,
Don't throw your life away just because you don't love him. That's ridiculous.
what kind of line is this? We talked about some of this stuff a little bit out of order, but mostly because, you know, of how it's related to each one of these characters. So none of the characters are, to me, at all realistic. It's all weird. You know, the boy, the man boy, Denny, who is being taken care of by Johnny, he's unrealistic because he kind of, you know, is always at their house too. And the weirdest thing happened in the beginning of the film with this character where he's like, I want to come and get in the bed with you. So like, I like watching you. What?
We don't know what's going on, right? So it looked like a TV movie or whatever. Then, you know, this boy man, he just walks into the living room while this couple is there. And then he starts talking about how Lisa, this woman, looks all good and stuff, right? And how he kind of want to get with her. And, you know, and then they like, basically, we going to go upstairs and do it, basically.
Yeah.
And then they're going upstairs and he's like, I want to go with you. I like watching you. And then they go up there and start to do stuff. And then Denny is still downstairs and he goes up there and he gets in the bed with him. And I'm like, wait, what are we watching?
Yeah, why are you in here? What is this about to be? You know, I don't know what's going on here. So we have that happen. Just weirdness all the way around from every single, you know, character. Then they have this couple. I forgot their names, but there's a couple who also live in the building or whatever.
I kept saying Heather. It's Mike and Michelle.
Oh, I was going to say Elizabeth.
Mike and
Michelle. Okay. Mike and Michelle, they are in the room, in these people's living room, and they're getting all frisky about to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you in somebody else's apartment living room just about to do it? And then in walks the people who lives there. I'm like, what is the deal with this
and
room?
they're just like, oh, we do it here sometimes. But when that part happened, it's disorienting, right? Because I'm like, wait, this woman hair is different and she got a different nose.
We thought that was Lisa, because I was like, Lisa got her hair done. I said, this movie is really bad.
The whole thing is Lisa is smashing everybody. So then when we seen this lady with light hair in there with another man, I just like, oh, Lisa is really doing it. And
but why did they change Lisa's hair?
The movie is so bad. I'm like, okay, the continuity is off. Her hair is different and stuff. But yeah, but they looked kind of similar to me.
Yeah.
And it's just, what is going on in this movie? So then come to find out, it's a random couple who go there to smash?
Just like, why is this in the film? What is going on? How did this even seem realistic? You know, and then there's a part.
And then he left his drawers in there.
And he's like, oh, I left my underwear there and I went back to get them. What? Why is this in the movie? Other than it's just bizarre.
The room. Everything happens in that room.
Everything is bizarre, you know. And so also the mother and Lisa and her mother having their conversations, and the mother drops this bomb, like you mentioned earlier, about breast cancer. The mother's like, oh, I have breast cancer. I'm dying.
I got the results of the test back. I definitely have breast cancer.
And then it's like, wait, where did that come from? But does Lisa like, oh my gosh, Mom, what happened? No, Lisa's like, oh, you'll be all right.
Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. They're curing lots of people every day.
And then the mother is just as dismissive of it. I'm like, wait, what?
I'm sure I'll be all right.
What? Who in the world? This is just very, very strange. And, you know, we see the mother, like I said, multiple times. And what's also weird to me is every time on camera, every time that Johnny sees Lisa's mother, he kisses her like we see him at least it feels like 4 or 5 times in the movie kiss the mother-in-law or the mother-in-law to be on the cheek or whatever. And, not like a real kiss.
But Eastern European kiss.
Maybe. I don't know. But then he don't want to admit that that's where he's from. So I don't know. It's
just European.
It's all very, it just all adds up to foolishness, And so then the next thing, we were talking about the surprise birthday party for Johnny, where Johnny gets into it with his best friend, Mark. Well, before all of this happens, Johnny announces that he and Lisa are expecting a baby.
We're expecting.
And then Lisa tells her friends, "Oh no, I'm not pregnant. I just lied." And the friends, Michelle and Mike are like, and then they're, like really standing on business, and they're like, "You can't tell him that." But it's just this very stiff and crazy dialogue. But ultimately, they want her to tell the truth, and they're mad at her. And then they're like, "You're going to break up the friend group because of what you've done."
It's gonna shake up our group of friends. It's gonna destroy our friendship, Lisa.
Right? I'm like, okay, wait. If this happens, you're not concerned about the fact that he's supposed to be like the most wonderful person in the world, and that's why. No, you're going to break up the friend group.
Yeah.
This is why we're mad. Just more.
But see, those are supposed to be the subtle things that you think about while you're watching the film, and it's not what's supposed to be stated. That it will inevitably happen, or you can show that. But yeah, you don't have a character just say it.
Yeah.
But so the party scene, they had a lot of B-roll just randomly in there. And I'm like, wait, what are all these different events? And it all happened to be the same party or the same scene. It was very weird. I'm like,
well, it's because it's like they shot something and they just kept putting it in, almost like a YouTube video where you just, they're like, oh, and there was a party, and then you just see random shots of a party. Then later in the video, they mention a party again, and you see some same random shots.
No, not that. Where you see the party, and then they show like the city, right? And then they show some people sitting somewhere else, and I'm thinking they're at a restaurant or somewhere else out on town, but they're really still at the
in
party.
That room. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this party, though, this is another funny thing that happens. At the party, Lisa starts dancing with somebody else that's not Mark and not Johnny. And both Johnny and Mark are jealous looking at her because she's, or not dancing, talking to somebody else. And then later, Lisa is dancing with Mark, and then Johnny tries to intervene, and this is how the fight gets kicked off. And then Mark hits him with if you keep your girl satisfied, she won't come to me. So like, this is the point where it's all exposed.
Didn't Mark and Lisa have a problem over who the baby was?
Oh yeah. Before that is when Mark is like, whose baby is it?
Whose baby is it? Is it mine?
No, of course not.
I mean, is it my baby? It just was too much. It was like the attempt at the bad Tubi movie, or at the salacious Tubi movie, I should say. Pre-Tubi. But so Johnny is just now been exposed, and he's all embarrassed in front of other people because this fight has happened, and his woman done talked crazy to him, and she's with another dude and everything.
She was like, no, she was dancing with them, and they had their hands all over each other and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't, it was like, hey, they don't care no more. They just out in the open in his living room at his birthday party.
Foolishness. So then he hits him with the line, "Everybody betrayed me. I'm fed up with this world."
It's not over. Everybody betrayed me. I'm fed up with this world.
That is literally like the line he says. And so then after the party and whatever, Lisa's there. Johnny has locked himself in the bathroom. And so now he's like, charging himself up. He's getting in his mode if he was DJ off of Hustle and Flow. And he calls Lisa a stupid bee.
You can come out now, Johnny. She's gone.
In a few minutes, bitch.
And then so this is completely out of character because Johnny is so nice. He's so easygoing, and he's just like, you stupid bee.
She won't come. She want him to come out the bathroom. He won't come out. He call her a stupid bee.
Yes.
So she get mad and she calls Mark. Mm-hmm. And they basically confessing their love for each other and how they want to see each other. He wants her body. Mm-hmm. So that makes Johnny come out of the bathroom. Like, why but she was in the same room. So the bathroom was an ensuite in the bedroom. And for no reason, she just called him, right? And
he's like,
Johnny
just come
can hear
on
through
here.
the door.
Lisa starts packing. Johnny puts his ear to the door. Lisa starts packing. while Johnny is listening from the bathroom. And it just is foolish.
Yeah,
So
then
it comes out.
he was like, "Who are you talking to?" And she's just basically like, "Nobody. It was nothing, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, "Okay, I know. I was recording the conversations." Then he go downstairs, he get the tape,
We'll see about that.
and then he plays the entire conversation that we just heard, basically.
Play it back again.
Yeah. Like, wait.
And Lisa's packing while all
Yeah.
of this is going on.
You didn't need to do any of that because you were listening through the door.
We heard it.
That was the whole purpose of setting up the recorder.
Yeah.
Earlier
So all
in
you
the
have to
movie?
do is like hold up the recording device and be like, I've got it here.
You
And
don't
then
even
you don't
gotta
have
do
to
that
replay it.
because
you know?
he heard it through the door.
And then
like, what?
the next, it should have just cut to, her being like, you've been recording me, that kind of thing. Like she finds out that, whatever. Like, but this is so bad. I don't know that we could fix this.
Yeah.
A lot of times if it's just a bad ending, we'll fan fiction it up, Axiom Amnesia style or something. But no.
But yeah. Lisa left right after that to try to go get with Mark.
But not before he said, I gave you 7 years of my life and you betrayed me.
Do this to me! I gave you 7 years of my life.
Oh,
You
man.
know.
And then that's when he tears up the room. He throws the TV out of the window.
Yes.
And this is upstairs. And he throws the
Could have
TV.
probably injured somebody below. He went from I'm so thankful I have Lisa. I'm so thankful I have Mark to everybody betrayed me.
He threw the TV out where his car is usually parked, which I
Yes.
think was his actual car.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so he threw it out the window, tore up the whole room. Then he finds his piece that's in a nice little
Wait,
box.
but before he does that, there was this red dress that he had bought her
Oh,
at the
bruh.
beginning of the movie as a gift, and she puts it on or whatever, and she's parading around in it.
So the scene where he was doing that, he started, I don't know,
rubbing the red
he started
dress
rubbing
on
the red
his
dress
parts
all over him,
and
but it's
sniffing
like
it. And
yeah, it's like a scene from another movie that they watched or liked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe there was a streetcar named Desire.
no, a streetcar named Desire.
Yeah, maybe that one. I don't know. But yeah, I know that scene was from another movie where, you know.
Where he's like, Stella.
I guess.
That's a streetcar named
oh, yeah.
Desire.
And he's
Yeah.
like humping the air and acting like he's. He's having the little, le petit mort is kind of like what was going on there. And he ripped the dress up and stuff. And yeah.
He gets one last one out before what he's
Rubbing
about to do. Like, this should not be funny. This should not be. He's supposed to be distraught. This should not be funny.
Yep. So that happens. He gets that little box, the fancy box.
Jerks one out in his rage.
Bruh.
He gets the box out. And then he says his final words, which, he's like, God forgive me. And then he puts the steel in his mouth and,
Pop. And then.
he's in the upper room.
Bruh.
Yeah.
And then here comes.
He's laid out.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Lisa and Mark come in.
Are there. Mm-hmm.
And then they just basically like, let's check his pulse, basically.
They're freaked out.
And then they're mad. And then Lisa just want to leave with Mark, right? And then Mark doesn't like her now. This is all your fault.
Turned
all
to
of
hate.
a
It's
sudden,
all your fault. And whatever. But
when
then
he done everything that he done.
But not before he leans over and kisses him on the cheek.
Yeah, that was weird.
Which was a weird thing to do.
Then Denny comes in and he's distraught.
Denny is like,
Oh, no.
Then he
Give me
tells them,
time
you
with
all have
them."
to get out.
And then they didn't leave. They walked to the stairs and just stood there.
While Denny is just freaking out.
And then they freaked out and then they walked back over. And yeah, I don't know what was going on.
And Lisa
This whole
tries to
scene.
comfort Denny. And then we hear the sirens coming and curtains.
Curtains.
And that's the end of the movie.
And that's the great dramatic ending.
Oh my
It was kind of
gosh.
sad though when he done that to
It
himself.
was sad when he did that to himself. Like, it was supposed to be like, dun, dun, dun. Like, you were supposed to feel something. And this is just a prime example of when it don't hit right, it can give you the exact opposite effect.
Yeah.
The exact opposite effect. But I am really glad that we actually did cover this film. I'm glad I got a chance to know about it because, you know, here we are covering films. We had no idea that there was this cult following for this movie called The Room that I had never even heard of. I did not know it was a thing.
And now I want to see and read everything about it.
Yeah, because it's just like the background is like far better and far more interesting than the story. Like, I want to know, Tommy Wiseau, like, A, where are you from? How old are you?
And where you get all your money?
And let us know also in the comments if you want us to cover the movie Gaslight that we mentioned earlier. All right. And a special thanks again to our executive producer who used our deep dive on demand to request this movie, because this is not a movie that you would have ever seen on Axiom Amnesia. You just wouldn't have, because we didn't even know about it.
Didn't know. But if you want to watch something that's good about a room, one of my favorite series is The Lost Room from around 2006. If you made it this far, type "You're tearing me apart, Lisa" in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around.
And be sure to check out the video that's on the screen right now.